have a clear voice. It's not about how deep you sound or how high you sound. It's about the ability to speak well.
We speak to prolific Nigerian voice merchant who has been in the game for over 16 years.
And I submitted that as my demo. And that was when I got my first chance to speak on a microphone.
Boss Chiedu Onabu, an OG broadcaster and voice actor, shares his experience in the craft.
That was 2008, 2007. Continued with radio in Silverbird, Benin, and moved to Abuja.
And some valuable insights to being a voice actor.
It's all about being intentional about your craft and taking it seriously. It might look like fun, but man, there's a lot of fun that's a lot of work.
What is a good voice?
There's a uniqueness to every voice. I refrain from using special, not special, unique. Not all voiceovers is voice acting.
How does radio impact your voiceover career?
A lot of people don't know that. They think that it's the same thing, but you know, there's that thin line. Because we still have some people saying things like, "It's just talk now. You just talk."
Tell me
about
it.
What? You just talk? Like, really? Is that what you think? All right.
Okay,
All right.
so we're recording now, and let's just jump right into it. Hi guys,
Yes.
welcome to another episode of the Everything Voiceovers podcast, the African perspective. It's been a great 30 minutes here on the pod. Before I hit record, you guys should have heard all the conversation between Sarah Johnson and Boss Chiedu. At this point, I don't even know if it's necessary for me to do an introduction of Boss. Because the conversation has just
Let's follow protocol. Let's just
Let's
follow
yeah.
All
mhm.
protocols duly observed.
Duly observed. All right. So as you can tell, this episode is definitely going to be a very interesting one for everybody. So yeah, let's just dive right into it. Today we have a special guest. Of course, I don't think I need to introduce you, Sarah. Sarah is like the co-host, you know. But I got one of my G's, and he's officially an OG, and you're gonna know why in a jiffy. But he has been in the industry for over a decade, maybe closing into 2 decades. Not just an OG in voiceover, but an OG in the radio, in the broadcast space. Having worked across top broadcast stations, radio stations in Nigeria. And now he's just flying around different countries doing stuff in the media world.
Aw.
Yeah. He's popularly called Buzz, Buzzz, but his real name
Joe
is
Infinity.
but his real name is Chiedu Onabu. So, ladies and gentlemen, let's welcome Buzz Chiedu Onabu. Hey, Buzz.
Thank you.
Oh my.
What an awesome introduction that was.
Yeah, nice to
So
hear
great
your
to have you
voice.
on, Buzz.
Yeah, thanks, Sarah. It's awesome joining you guys on the podcast. You call that, Sarah.
It's
Thanks,
awesome
for
having
bringing me
you
on
too,
here.
man.
So great to
Uh,
have
yeah.
you.
And in case you guys are wondering if you've heard Buzz's voice before, I can bet you guys you've heard him on a couple of several commercials in Nigeria. But the most recent stuff that Buzz was featured on that took a lot of traction in the space is one of the animation projects that happened last year, and that's Ajaka Lost in Rome, created by Spoof Animations. Now, Buzz happened to play the role of the bad guy, and that's Shango. And you if you've not watched Ajaka Lost in Rome, you need to watch it. Go on YouTube. We're gonna drop the link in the show notes. And if you listen to Buzz's performance, even physically, you'd be like Buzz. But then, I mean, it looks, it's very, very, intimidating stature.
Wait, have they heard his voice?
For
Have
real?
we let him talk?
Not
Sarah, you
necessarily
have to do that.
intimidating.
Oh, yeah, do that Shango impression for us, please. You have to.
Buzz.
Please.
There's so many lines. There were so many lines, right? And
Yeah.
So what was one of your favorites?
maybe my most memorable was the part where he spoke with Ajaka
Ajaka.
in the palace. Because they were brothers who
Mm-hmm.
obviously Ajaka was the older brother, and Shango, due to the situation at hand, took the throne from him. And one of the lines I think was supposed to be, "I hereby banish you." I think I hereby banish you
Mhm.
from the palace. So he, after the first banter,
That's a device.
Sarah wants to hear
Okay.
that boy.
all right.
Banish you.
So okay, Ajaka, I hereby banish you. So
I'm telling
it
you, if you
was,
haven't seen Ajaka Lost in Rome before, you don't know what
it
you're
was,
missing. I think it's one that everybody should see. Like, I was so
Yeah.
mad when I got to the end. Do you know that when I went for Comic Con, I still told
Yeah.
Mr. Ayo, I was like, excuse me, sir. Excuse me.
Yeah.
You cannot end things like this. It's not right. So, I
Yeah.
mean, is there any updates? Do you think we're going to be hearing like any updates about Ajaka Lost in Rome anytime soon? Like maybe like a
and what was his
series or,
response?
I
What did he
don't
say?
say anything. We say we're working on it. We're working on it. That's what he said. But I'm trying to see if I can drag more information from you.
It was actually it was a fantastic experience, really, and
Yeah.
having a very good voice director is
Mhm.
key. Remy Olutimai was the or that is the voice director on that project, and he he's would I call it, his talent in the art of voice directing was actually shown through us. That's the truth. Because yes, you could self-direct, but then again, when you have a voice director that understands the story and is able to bring together actors to do what the story tells, it's gold. And yeah, so yeah, that was it. That was it.
What were
It's
some
pretty
major
pretty
things
cool
you
stuff.
learned being on that project?
Yeah, well, it made me understand that basically voice acting is not a joke, especially for animation. All right, especially
Yeah.
for animation,
Mm.
like, because I've done really like short clips, short stuff. There was one my part I did. They didn't get to approve that because of some budget constraints. South Africa's Super Striker. I don't know if you remember, there was a comic book, Super Striker, that was pretty popular, and
Whoa.
it was
Yeah.
being
Yeah.
sold in a lot of
Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean, the
outlets. So
animation is even
yeah,
out.
so
Yeah.
yeah, it's out. But then the first ones we got to do for the Nigerian adaptation, in Pidgin English, that one didn't get to fly because of some partnership issues. Didn't get to go through. So it was only for the regular English, and I mean South Africans speak English
What
too.
year
So
was
I mean,
this?
so I think that was 20. Was that 20 2018? I think that was 2018, 2018. 2000, and it was a fantastic project. So those ones, I think I was a commentator. I did two roles there, commentator and the coach for the boys. That's for the Super Strikers. I took those two roles, and yeah, it was pretty easy compared to having a complex story like that of Ajaka Lost in Rome. Because the
Yeah.
more complex the stories are, the more immersed and involved you understand your characters will have to be, and yourself
absolutely.
also, because that's what you're doing. I'm sure
Yeah,
with Yanu,
yeah.
I'm sure you experienced this also, Sarah. So yeah, I can imagine.
Absolutely.
So yeah,
I
it's
can
something
totally
that
relate
it's
on that
something.
front.
Yeah, something like that. You'll have to take it take quite a lot from you. So I understood that basically it's not easy. It's not your regular acting. And funny enough, I'm not dissing actors.
Yeah,
Being an actor yourself is also not a joke. But then you realize that you know getting to use just your voice to convey all sorts of emotions. You find out that you're also
Yeah.
acting, like it or not.
Yeah.
So
Definitely.
yeah, it's
yeah.
that was the major thing for me. It was not just your regular acting gig,
I
right?
still
It
have
was
one more question on that. I know Tico
yeah,
wants to
yeah,
ask some questions, but
No, please go
I
on,
yeah,
Sarah.
hear voiceover artists. Thank you.
yeah,
I hear voiceover
yeah,
artists a lot in the industry, especially those just starting out. Some of their
yeah,
major pain points are emoting, right? And like you now find that problem, especially when that person is used to doing commercials and other types of voiceover. So when they get into voice acting, it's like a whole different world and they have problems emoting. So what would you say helped you in the process of, because like you said, when you're doing characters like that, you get to do a whole lot more expression of different emotions, like sometimes a mix of emotions, like at once. You're sad, and
Yeah.
at the same time there's just a lot that you get to do sometimes in one scene, and sometimes you
Yeah.
just have to express those emotions in maybe a line. Like this line has to convey like 5 different
Honestly,
emotions at the
you're
same
very
time.
correct. Yeah.
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 So I mean, for you, what was your process, and how were you able to bring forth that part of yourself? What was able to help you through that expression, like emoting? What was able to,
Yeah.
what were the things that were able to help you through it?
Okay. So I'm going to speak from two aspects, right? Because fortunately for me, I've been able to like see both sides. Um, Earlier on, I said, it's basically acting. If you haven't taken any acting classes, it's going to be difficult, right? Generally speaking. If then there are those who just have the talent, they can express themselves and all that. But then if you've not taken any acting classes at all, it would be a problem. When I was quite young, I used to do a lot of acting on stage from, primary school, secondary school, did a bit of that. But luckily for me, those are the kind of things that kind of stuck. So the luck for me was when I met a good voice director. So that, participating in that kind of activity at a young age, and I was heavily involved in theater, television itself, like
Yeah.
TV, animation, movies itself. I'm a huge movie buff, so those things were pretty easy when I got to in fact, I think it's pretty easy for me whenever I get to meet a good voice director, with a good story. But then on the other side, on the flip side, I was able to. I got into a situation like that when I was working in radio, right? So the BBC has this radio drama called Story Story. I don't know if you've
Yeah.
heard of it. You must have heard of it.
Amen.
Yeah.
Come on.
Yeah, I've
And
heard of
see
it.
those
Yeah,
I've heard of
I
guys,
it.
know
see
it.
those guys are OGs. Like
Yeah.
any voice you hear
Yeah.
on BBC's Story Story,
Story,
man,
story.
they are not just regular people when it comes to acting. They must have been on screen or on theater, and they didn't just wake up. So I used to present, or rather, I used to produce that show that's for broadcast, not on set, and loading the whole thing in the radios. And
You
I
mean
and I was no, I'm
you're
not
literally
producing,
with
no,
one
not
producing?
producing it on,
Oh,
no,
okay. I
not
mean,
producing it
okay, I
on
get you.
set. That's broadcast, that's loading and
Yeah, I
airing
feel
it
you.
and monitoring. Yeah. So I used to listen. In fact, I was a fan of Story Story from secondary school, right? And I had favorite voices there. So, but I had never really been on set, just theater. And I used to imagine how this used to be. How were they always doing these things, right? Um, Fortunately for me, my career started while I was in university. I think my
Yeah.
first year in radio. And funny enough, I think my third year, I got the opportunity to meet one of those story actors.
Wow.
Now, the girls that played this joke on me, I'm sure they'd see this podcast sometime. They didn't tell me their mom was this lady I was always listening to on air, and I was freaked out because honestly, I was actually starstruck when I got to meet her.
Wow.
So wait.
you
Let me
know,
get this straight. They were listening to
yeah.
you gush about her and never told you it was their mom?
No, they didn't. I think they were first off kind of like they were weirded out, but then they kind of enjoyed the joke because
So they
they
knew all this
you
while that the
understand?
person you were gushing about was their mom.
Yeah, yeah. And okay, maybe I didn't make it so clear. Maybe I didn't make it so
Yeah.
clear who it was, but
Yeah.
I was like, man, there's this other lady, Nose Brown, and she's so awesome. And and maybe we'd be reading or something, and then I'd leave them. I'm going to listen to Story Story. I started using all those tiny radio sets. But long story short was they got to know, but they didn't tell me it was their mom until they just, unveiled her to me one day, and I was like, Oh my God. But and I got to asking her a few questions, and she's an
Yeah.
actress herself, a theater actress, and
Wow.
I got to understand something, right? Like it or not, you have to find a way. I don't like using that word emote. It's a
Mm.
popular word. I just finished. Okay, I was talking to T Code over the weekend. I was teaching a few, coaching a few students in voice acting and voiceovers, and this topic came up, and I told them that yes, emotions are, yeah, it's really important, but the word is sort of
It's tossed
overused.
around a lot.
Yeah, they just use it, just the emotion. I'd rather use the word expressive and expression, because it's like the base definition of what it is. You
It's
have to
like
be.
emoting is under expression in the grand scheme of things. You're
Yeah, that's what. But
expressing.
yeah, but
Yeah.
it's a broader word. Just that it
Mm.
kind of just sounds very simple, and
Yeah.
everyone uses
Yeah.
it a lot. Yeah. So, but expression is where I hammer on most times, because the moment you can key into that, the ability to express, if you can do it as much as you can, right, you'd be able to break through. So for those who did not have the kind of maybe opportunity, or uh, work in the kind of place I worked, or met the kind of people I met, you have to work on how well can you express yourself, right? And expression in the sense of people can see it on your face. Then if you have to speak when acting, find a way to put that expression into your voice, because
Mm.
it's basically speaking. If they tell you cry, now it's one of the things that I love that AI would take a long time to achieve. There's still this deadness when it comes to voice acting that AI has. It sounds very soulless, maybe for regular voiceovers, like we said, and really that's the difference. Like you said, having voiceover artists getting into the studio to do a voice acting gig, it's a lot of work, because they have to switch from, just their regular lines and narrating into expression, and
Mm.
that's where the work is. So if you want to get into this, go and take, acting classes.
Mm.
Have a good person that it will help. For me, the challenge was, the challenge always for me is always, I hope I have a good voice director, right? I have
Mm.
someone to do this voice directing properly, because you might have the person who has the story, but when it comes to things like animation or things like ADR, you need someone to tell you, this is what you should see. Sometimes somebody like Remy, because I've worked with him a lot, will tell you things like, take your voice to the edge of the room. Now you have to start thinking of, okay, like you are throwing your voice, or you are looking at it while you are still keeping your mic right in front of you.
Right?
You are seeing
I know,
yourself trying
right?
to.
I mean,
So
Tico and I can relate on this one. Like, it's
yeah,
crazy. Like,
Yeah.
because you're having situations where maybe in terms of even wallas and reacts and efforts, where you have to sound like
yeah,
this person is out of breath, or this person is trying to climb a tree, or this person is
yeah,
literally fighting a war, and
Yeah.
you
yeah,
have to have your mic in place.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
So
one of the
and
things that it's it's
yeah.
it's it's not easy. It's not easy. Let's just leave it that
Yeah.
way, because the way it's done, when you hear the finished work, it's like, oh my God, so fantastic. But it is work,
I know.
Yeah.
serious work, you know.
Takes a
Yeah.
lot of
So yeah,
Yeah.
genius to
yeah,
do
yeah,
voice directing so well. Like I respect
yeah,
voice directors, even having worked with
Absolutely.
Paula Gamon. Shout out to her. Oh my God,
yeah.
she is a
It's
genius
on
at what she
point.
We
does.
love you, our Shalewa. Oh yeah, so
Paula, aka
it's
Shaliwa, right?
yes. So like we Christianed her. We gave her a Yoruba name.
Oh my God.
Shaliwa, fantastic. Yeah,
Oh
yeah.
Lord.
Welcome our Niger sister. That's so. That's so.
And then for
Yeah,
context, right? Okay, Paula is the voice director on the Yanu project,
yeah.
which is going to be out on Cartoon Network next year, 2025. Remy is the voice director who worked on the Ajaka Lost in Room project. Is like one of the biggest voice directors in Africa. Is
And he's
the
also the voice of
first
Ajaka.
We needed to put that out there. He acted or played the role of Ajaka while Boz was the bad guy, Shango. And the story was quite interesting because for the first time, Ajaka is Shango is predominantly the bad guy instead of being the good guy or the protagonist, as it were. But anyway, away from all of that, listening to you talk about story just took me through memory lane. And I began to remember that there was this era on radio where you always had audio dramas. I don't know, man. This era of radio today, we don't. Maybe it's me that is not listening to radio as much.
No.
Maybe it's me that is not listening to radio as much. We don't.
Even the ones that I've heard in recent times, they don't have as much depth. I remember when I used to stay awake. This is me. I'll be under my blankets by 11 p.m., holding phone to my ear, listening to audio drama.
Radio. Like, God.
I mean, these days, and we always say, "Oh, radio is dying, radio is this." But I mean, you don't have stories like that keeping it alive. You don't have content like that keeping it alive anymore.
You looked forward to the next one. There was a cliffhanger. There was this. The production, the sound design.
It's so hilarious watching you guys gush over radio. Like,
oh my God! Like, that was what we enjoyed about radio. Oh, BBC would do. UNICEF, WHO,
radio was my because I had busy parents, so sometimes when we're on holidays and they were busy, they'll just keep us inside the house. There's no light, so radio is your guy.
Yeah.
So if I'm not
totally
listening to audio dramas, I'm listening to Rick D's and the weekly top 40s.
Weekly top 40. Oh my God, that was fantastic,
exactly,
man.
Rick D's.
Those were the time. I totally understand.
Or lean on me.
I shared the sentiment, right? I shared the sentiment. The thing is, okay, can I chime in on why what's happening is happening the way it is?
Please do, because we are three of us are radio people, so let's enjoy the conversation.
Yeah, so basically, right, corporate radio has its pros and cons, ups and downs. We all know that. But then again, regarding this particular issue, I think it's not like people don't listen to radio anymore. They do. A lot of people still listen to it. It's just that, okay, first off, the advent of technology has broadened a lot of perspectives and brought more options, right? Now, like podcasting right now, very few people started podcasting. I was just talking about that, when we're off air, about how I used to do a movie podcast in 2012, 2013. Yeah. Right? And this was something going on, outside Nigeria, outside Africa. But then it wasn't a thing. Everyone was still listening to, all the station IDs, 94.7, 93.7, 92.1. Everybody was always listening. And the truth is, another factor is how creative people get as technology gets better. So what we were doing at the time, some people could call in to another segment of radio on another day and like, hey, there was this day you guys were talking about something, this, that. But it's gone, right? We've broadcast it, we've said what we needed to say, we've aired our views, we've played our music, and it's gone. So what we started doing was we started recording our sessions, right? And the cool thing about where I worked at the time was it was a more, I won't say the name of the station, but they had a tagline that was really popular. And that kind of kept it to be the more music, less talk station. I'm sure you know what station that is. But it was...
I don't know what you want to say, but then you're an OG in this. Come on.
Okay. It was rhythm. Silverbird's rhythm 94.7. Yeah,
94.7.
Yeah, those guys were
oppressors.
The kings of more music. Man, you will not hear another station banging jams, hitting us with new songs like rhythm. And one of my very first supervisors told me that because of the style of delivery that the radio station has, we should always do what she called keep it short and simple, KISS. KISS, keep it short and simple. Say what you need to say. People don't want to hear you rant and talk about. But that was then. People were always like music, music, music. And if you want to hear somebody talk, you'll be like, oh, say what you want to say, Joe. Let's go back to our music. And that was the tradition of the radio station. But you see, times change. And as it started to change, with more issues going on in the world, with more people, like I said, getting more creative in the industry, you start seeing that certain people now want to hear what you want to say. Some hidden information, people want to hear what is that hidden thing and what's been going on since that we didn't know about. So that's where some other radio stations took the initiative also and started just talk. People just talk on air, and then you hear maybe something like it's a more talk, less music. You understand? So basically, I think it still has its relevance, and just like maybe a smaller group of people are really like the way we are into it right now and how it was for us then, you know. But then it still has its place. I mean, the common man, everyday man, walking on the road, just doing some menial job and just whiling away time. Everybody, all the guys that are in the bus parks, and they still listen to radio because they listen to music at the same time. All the bus drivers, doing all the logistics and traveling from place to place, many of them still listen to radio. And another part
Yeah.
that has become like a huge thing for them is basically like local radio, like speaking in my language, in my vernacular language that I actually would understand. So it's still
Yeah.
there. It's just becoming more of a niche now, I believe. That's what I
Mm.
think. Yeah.
And I also think like
Yeah.
we've started having, or it's already a thing where there are podcasts dedicated to audio dramas.
Yeah.
Even
That's
big
another evolve. Yeah,
corporations
evolution.
do,
Yeah.
Yeah.
like Marvel will have the audio dramas version of their comics, same as DC. Like I could listen to a Batman podcast and it's all storytelling, audio drama, and all of that, and
Yeah.
it was so
Yeah.
immersive. So
Yeah.
that's like storytelling has really evolved beyond
It's
radio,
evolved.
because I
The
think
art has
Crazy.
gone. I'm telling you.
Crazy. I remember listening to this story on Audible. It was a story about a girl in space. Like, and they went all in with the sound design. It's like it was so immersive. You'd feel like you're in space with her. It was a story of her trying to get back home from space and losing the tools that would help her transport herself back to Earth.
wow,
Yeah,
that sounds
so
interesting
it was
already.
very interesting. I can't remember the name right now, but I will look for it. We should include it in the notes. Like, it was
Yeah.
so mind blowing. I was hooked. It was a series. I think it had like 8 episodes, and I just remember
Yeah.
sitting like this and just listening to it. And a couple of others like that. Yeah, storytelling has gone. It has really evolved. Yeah. So
Yeah.
now with having platforms that are not just radio, having platforms that you can control, to an extent, has now really allowed people to diversify where it gets to be. So I think before radio
Yeah.
used to have that autonomy. They used to have that, you come to us or you don't really have much options. But now
Yeah.
you can release it as a podcast. So yeah.
Yeah.
Facts.
I mean, it's
And-
true.
Uh,
I mean,
and
artists
speaking-
used to pay radio stations. Sorry for continuity code.
Yeah,
Artists used
true.
to pay
Yeah.
radio stations to play their songs first.
Yeah.
So
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
but now you drop it. You can even choose to do your promotion on Instagram and
Do
keep
it
your
yourself,
money to
yeah.
yourself.
Yeah.
Please,
So-
Tico, carry on.
Speaking about the power that radio has, right? Just the same way
Yeah.
radio dominated in audio dramas back in the days
Yeah.
in Nigeria, and I believe most part of the world as well. Voiceover also kind of like peaked like even when I was doing some research about the likes of Mel Blanc, um, and some OGs in the radio world, like someone like Mel Blanc that was there since the beginning of Warner
Looney Tunes.
Brothers,
Yeah.
this cartoon folks. Yeah, I think it was Warner Disney rather,
Looney Tunes. Yeah.
right?
Warner
When Disney
Brothers,
started
Looney Tunes,
animation in
Bugs
like
Bunny.
Looney Tunes, yeah, and it was a radio guy as well. So radio and voiceover were more like twins back, like coming from when it started until later on. We started having people who are like full-time actors doing voiceover and not exactly related to radio. And now
Yeah.
we have people who have no idea about radio and they're doing voiceover. Now, the times have changed because you then start to realize that if you've been in radio for so long, it leaves an imprint in you, and you tend to sort of carry that identity and bring it into your voiceover in a way that it's not necessary. So, in the past 5 to 6 years to a decade, when voiceover training institutions started coming up, I saw that trend where people who are OAPs or previous radio people and all of that, they come in to learn. There would be this intentionality with the facilitators trying to help them not to do radio with voiceover. And I'm bringing this conversation up because I want you guys to react to this. I have
Okay.
had that experience. Let me drop this on the podcast. Okay. So one of the voiceover artists whom I like, I mean, is in our generation, like me, Sarah, G is Femi Bakes, and
Yeah.
Femi does his work very, very well. I listen to him, and I have a
Sound
theory. I don't
maker.
know if I'm correct. Yeah, the sound
Sound
maker.
maker.
He's been on
Yeah.
the podcast
Yeah.
before. I have a theory that one of the things that makes Femi sound so good, aside the fact that he puts in effort, is that it has not been, forgive me if I use the word, adulterated by the radio system. He didn't spend his time being in that system for so long. So Femi can easily morph into whatever you need him to be. Unlike with
Absolutely.
radio people who,
You have a point
when we
there.
see the mic, our mind has been trained to carry on a persona, that OAP thing, that there's a way you just want to be kind. You just want to be like smiley to people. You want them to enjoy what you're saying. So, hi guys, welcome to da. So if you've been in radio for so long, by the time you begin to handle voiceover, you're just mixing it with so many
I think
performance
the
type
only
thing.
people that doesn't get to affect are people that are very deliberate about it, one, or
Yeah.
people that, from the very onset were very intentional about like being able to separate it, like maybe because they're doing voiceover and radio at the same time. So they didn't get to lean into one direction more than the other.
Yeah.
I think it's only
Yeah.
those two people. But for people that spend a lot of time in radio,
Yeah.
it's like, yeah, you definitely will have that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I really want to hear what Buzz has to say, but just before I let you talk,
What do you
Buzz,
think? Okay.
I also think that it has its advantages and then the disadvantage. The advantage is that you stay in radio for so long that you've consumed a ridiculous amount of commercials that you don't. Sometimes you just see a script and you know
Out of
what is it.
character becomes a
You-
problem.
Now that's the downside. The advantage is that you sort of like have a mastery on commercials, like you just know what it now. But then that is also questionable because commercial has also evolved over the years. Now we people want to have conversational type read, which is something that traditional radio wasn't like accustomed to. So
was very
it's getting
announcery.
harder. Yeah, it's getting harder for radio people because now it's difficult for you to just be free and let's go and just become conversational. And worse still is that to now get into character and animation and radio drama, it's not so easy for radio people. So I have had my struggles with it, and I've also had my process of trying to deal with it over the years. Boss, what do you think about what I just said? Like, what's your take?
Well, I would first off say kudos to you, man. You're pretty observant. It's it's a fact. What you're saying is very true. And Sarah, that thing you said too, about those who were very intentional or maybe got to do it side by side, doesn't affect them as much. Femi Bakes is, like you said, he didn't spend a lot of time. And see, I will not mince words too. If you have a talent, right, what's important is to upskill, keep honing that talent, use it. People who maybe they just encountered journalism. I encountered journalism while I was in school, and that was what led to me doing radio, right? But before then, I had a friend who kind of hinted like, man, your voice, man, when the 13, 14 years old, the cracks start happening and puberty sets in and so it was one of the things that he was like, guy, homo, my chest, you just made me gotta do voiceovers now, that was what he said. And that was when the idea was like, oh, well, I kind of like cartoons and stuff, and
Yeah.
okay, maybe. And then the opportunity came, and I jumped at it. So but prior to that, right, I I would say that it's just under the same umbrella of being a voice talent, broadcasting, which is what you're talking about, right? Broadcasting has its persona. I know people who do broadcasting, singing, voice acting, voiceovers. But just like you said, Sarah, you have to be deliberate. If you just stumbled across it and just took it as life comes, and just you do your job, not like you're bad at it, but you're just doing it as it comes, it becomes more of a challenge. That's where being
Yeah.
intentional is really important. So yes, I agree with what you said, Sarah. It was something I faced. Like I was just giving a story back a few minutes earlier about how I encountered something like story. I used to watch movies and everything. My folks were movie buffs too. My mom's an arts person. My dad is more of a sciences person, but still was into the arts. So where I was exposed to such things earlier on, and I was told that I started trying to read the newspaper when I was like what, 5 or 6 or something like that. So I was like mimicking people on TV when I see them, like, yeah, this is NTA News, and I am so person, that kind of thing. So, but I was just getting into character. So I found out that later on it's something I could act. Okay. So when I got my first job as an OAP back then, like I said, I like to be pretty particular. I was like, what's the meaning of OAP? I had never heard about it at the time. This was like what, 2010, 2011. I was like, OAP? Like, you mean like when you hear um duty continuity announcer, or continuity duty
DCA.
announcer? Is that? And they're like, no, like you're coming to entertain people. Like that's what you are coming to do. And I was like, what? You want me to come and do comedy on radio? But then with time I got to understand while I was listening to radio coming up. I now found out like, oh, these guys, they were acting, but then they told me no, this is them, like this is how they are. But then personally I started to find out that some put on an act, right? And some, it's just themselves, like that's how they really are. And I got to understand what the word OAP meant officially and unofficially. Yeah, I think I'm going pretty deep now, but the whole idea is that regarding crossing the lines, that's radio and voice acting. The truth is, you have to simply know what you are doing. On radio, you can act. I think voice acting takes the higher place on that. As a voice actor, you can act like a broadcaster,
Yeah.
right? The only place that might be quite problematic is to be a singer. You might not know how to sing. Your voice might not be as pleasing, But then being a voice actor trumps every other thing. You can pretend to be whatever you want to be if you are a good voice actor. So in some cases, it could be a disadvantage starting from radio and transitioning. But
Yeah.
then again, it's important to get trained. You learn, take acting classes. It will help. If it's acting classes or voice acting classes, take it. Right? It's a difficult thing for someone who has been, like, I mean, you just talked of Mel Blanc. Mel Blanc is
Yeah.
a legend.
Yeah.
Like him being able to like voice 10 characters in the same, in the
Yeah.
same series. 10 different characters, by the way, not
Yeah.
just 10 characters. 10 different
Yeah.
characters with
Different.
different personalities. He had acting talent.
Yeah.
He did. And he was employing it even as as a radio person. He had to
Yeah.
eventually leave his radio job now.
Yeah.
Left his radio job and, focus full time on acting. Same thing with Don LaFontaine. I don't know if you know Don
Yeah.
LaFontaine.
Yeah.
He
In the
is
world.
like, yeah, in a world. Once you hear that, in a world,
That's a
just know that
classic.
that's him.
It's about to go
He's
down.
yeah, man. Independence Day was the first time. That movie was the first movie I was like, whoa, what the, who is this? And Independence Day was in the 90s, I think 1996, with Will Smith and what's the other dude's name? So, but these guys had that foundation. Honestly, radio has its part to play, but
Yeah.
but once you are crossing into voice acting, it's important that you understand that this is not just radio. You have to be intentional. It's not just your regular. You understand that? So, for what you're talking about, that Femi Baker does, yeah, it's a plus for him, and he's using it well, man. It's
Yeah.
it's a fantastic thing. Being able to. Another thing is some people, some radio people. For me, I met that challenge, with switching to camera. That's
Mm.
acting this
That's
time.
another thing.
That's another level. All these things we're saying,
Entirely.
yeah, that's another level, because some people, I mean, as a radio presenter, you just, I mean, you don't need to even look at the mic. You just talk, take your scripts, do whatever it is you want to do. But then, if it's theater or if it's live action, like, movie sets, there, you have to look at the camera. There are times looking at the camera is what is important. And if you can't look at the camera and be convincing with your expressions, it's a problem, you know. So yeah, I think basically it's all about being intentional about your craft, what you want to do, and taking it seriously. It might
Mm.
look like fun, but man, there's a lot of fun that's a lot of work.
Yeah.
So what we do as a cool thing, and it's because we take it as serious that it comes out as good as it is.
Mm.
So
Mm.
yeah, so that's my take on that.
Nice. Nice. Now I want to get all of those OG, because in my head, while you're talking, you talk about your days on radio, you talk about your days in school, you talk
Mhm.
about different things, and I'm trying to like piece the map together. So why
Okay.
don't you just give us a gist about your background from how
Yeah,
you
like how
ventured
that
into
journey started,
broadcasting
till
and
now.
yeah,
Okay.
then you got into
All right.
voiceover.
So yeah. Okay. So basically, the whole thing started from university. Radio started it all for me, and before then, the influences have been there. Like I said, watching movies, being a fan of the big screen and animation. Like animation was a huge part of my growing up. If it's not the first one I remember every day in my life, I think 1974. Walt Disney's 1974 Pinocchio
Mm,
with Mr. Geppetto and Jiminy Cricket and the Wooden Boy. It
yeah.
was like, and this is strange. My younger brother, I think I've told him this before. I have a younger brother. That animated character looked a lot like my younger brother, Pinocchio. Had this and I was really excited that I have a younger
Wow.
brother at the same time. That was the first
And
time
he
I
looks
got to
like
watch it.
Pinocchio.
Yeah, that cute boy with the blue eyes, and it was very weird. But then I think it was something that it got attached to me, kind of, and
Mm.
like I cannot forget any scene, any line in that
Aw.
cartoon, and it came naturally to me to just love cartoons. And then
Mm.
I encountered Tom and Jerry, and
Ooh,
The
Classic.
list went on from there. So um, the first time I heard something on radio, an ad on radio, I was asking like, how is this happening? Like, how are they talking like this? You know? But who was I going to ask? I was just one, an only child at the time, just listening to radio. Then sometimes I'm walking to school, I'm hearing announcements. It was quite fascinating. So when I got the opportunity to, in secondary school, first off, I, had a lot of friends that used to talk about things of this nature. And when I got into university, my first year, it was a no-brainer. When I saw the opportunity, I jumped at it. I remember my very first demo, right? Shout out to our team's Maven if he's hearing right now. Our team's was my very first producer for my very first demo. We were hustling seriously that time in University of Benin. Shout out to Unibet too. I was like the ad came out. Silverbirds looking for, young upstarts in the city of Benin and all that jazz. And I was like, okay, let me take a shot at this. And I started looking for anybody who was, a producer or who was doing recordings or had a studio. And I met up with him, and he worked it out. I just, drafted a short script, and just like, okay, I'll see it like this. Honestly, I didn't have any training. I didn't know what I was doing,
Hmm.
but this was enthusiasm at work.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I won't just say passion, because that's another thing
Mm-hmm.
that's really important for this job, having a passion for it. But this was just enthusiasm, like, oh, I've seen this place is, taking people, they're looking for fresh people. And I just, worked out something, and wrote down a few lines and found this guy. So we worked together on it, and in a few hours, he pieced it together, and I submitted that as my demo. And that was when I got my first chance to speak on a microphone, and people would hear me. And I was like, whoa. I didn't think I'd even get in for the job, but I did. And that was what, 2008, 2007. And
Amazing.
that was the journey from then on till now. So I continued with radio in Silverbird, Benin, in Edo State, and moved to Abuja. Did radio there, and right after that, I came back to Lagos and did a bit of TV and more of newscasting and directing for broadcast. And I started to dabble in direct voiceovers. That's for maybe characterization in I think 2015, 2016. And I had done commercials. I mean, working in radio is kind of like pari passu, hand in hand,
Yeah.
like we're just saying.
Mm-hmm.
So you do a lot of commercials, you get to do some narration, you get to do some IVR. Telcos will come and say, we want this guy's voice, we want him to do this, we want him to do this. And, that part of the voiceover uh, um, industry, the whole genre there, it came naturally because I had gotten the training while I was working. So, but then I encountered something online, and I was like, it was hilarious, and I did not know like, who was this person that did this animation. It was an animation that started this whole thing rolling again, and I was part of a movie podcast group on Facebook, and I had a friend there who we had never met anyway, but then he recommended that he's a digital artist, and he recommended that I should check this guy out. He gave me his number, and that was Remy Olutimai, and I called him up,
What year
and
was this?
this was 2000, and it was 2016. Yeah, 2016.
Okay.
And you know, I called him up first time. I didn't know who he was. I only just said, let me just give you a call, like. So yes, good morning or good afternoon. I got your number from so and so and so and so, and he was like, okay, you are. I
Was
told him
that
who I
just an
was.
impression of him? It did sound like
Oh,
him.
oh yeah, yeah, yeah. That was like, okay, okay,
Yeah.
Can
and
I mean,
then
imagine.
yeah, that's pretty much
and
Mr.
then I had
Remy.
to introduce myself. I had to introduce myself, and he was like, oh, that's fantastic. That's pretty good. Okay, tell me more. Tell me more. And
Yeah.
an hour, I think 45 minutes. We're on the phone.
Wow.
Wow.
It just turned to like some kind of like interview slash
Hmm.
getting to know who this person is. And he told me, when you come to Lagos, hit me up. You
You
know,
know, that's one of the things I love so much about Mr. Remy. Once he recognizes
Yeah.
talent, he's always really eager to like
Yeah.
he
embrace
does
you and
not
work with
And
relent.
you.
help you.
Like
Yeah.
it's like
Yes.
even
Remy's
if you
like
don't want
that.
to walk, you will walk.
Yeah, that's the thing.
Yeah.
He knows how to light
Like
that
he,
fire.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And
I love
and
it for that.
honestly, I was listening to someone. I was watching something a few days ago. I think. Okay, yes, I remember who it was. That's um Akpobome at Toyota, aka Alibaba, if you know him. I don't know if he was
Mm-hmm.
quoting someone or it was his quote. He said, when you're light and you light someone else up,
Mm,
you don't lose your light. You
yeah.
become a source.
Mm,
Mm.
You become a source. That's what you become, and it's true. So it's one of
Mm.
the things that I realized that working with someone who knows their onions, when they know what they are doing, and I met with him, and I got to Lagos, and whoa, it was crazy. I got to host a few things. I think I did some Comic Con hosting and some other things when I got into Lagos. But then when I met with Remy, we did some projects, and I found out that that thing that made me look for who did it was Remy that directed it. Area. It was one of those short skits,
Yeah.
animated skits. He was the
Yeah.
one who voiced majority of the characters and directed it. It was
Yeah.
hilarious, and it was very local. The idea of it being local content was what got me.
Mm.
Like, yes, we've seen all the Disneys, man. We've seen all those guys, and we need to see something different. And that
Mm-hmm.
was it. So he worked with an animator at the time who did fantastic work. And I met him, and it's been really cool since then. So I could say professionally, I started doing, animated voices and getting into voice acting from 2016, right?
Mm.
But voiceovers in general, I've been doing that for about 16 years. And it's been a journey, like a real journey. When you get to see a profession or a career from its infancy
mm,
grow, it's a beautiful thing. And you get to see more and more people getting into it. And because I mean, like, I've met people with like amazing voices, and I'm like, what are you doing with this? Like, what the, like, really? And one of the things that aches me is when maybe the person doesn't speak English. Yes, English is the worldwide language, but come on, there are other languages out there that need you know, much more exposure with this. And
Mm.
one can't control these things at times, but it's on people like us to let people like them know that you can use this to work. You can use
yeah.
this to,
Yeah.
earn a living. You can use this to, do much more than you're doing right now.
Mm.
So yeah, that's really been the journey for me. Right now, I'm a voice coach, voice actor, voice over artist, and I'm a media professional. I mean, my background has to count for something. I get to still work with a lot of productions and partnering with people, to push the ministry in quote. So yeah,
Wow, this
Amazing.
is this is
Amazing.
rich. I don't know if you have a question, Sarah, but something is on my mind.
Fire
If
away.
you okay, if you don't have a question, so you talked about um, you've met people and they have a good voice, and you think to yourself, what are you doing with this voice? Like, come on. Although now the industry has evolved over time, people are now more open to voiceover. And like then we're like, mega, mega, mega. I want us to, in a jiffy, talk about what makes a voice a good voice.
Okay.
Yeah, I feel
Okay.
like a lot of people are dashing into voiceovers without first of all understanding the sentiments, the bias behind how we perceive a voice to be a good voice. There are
Okay.
certain voices you would hear and it doesn't strike you at first or immediately like this person has a good voice. But you'll be shocked how far these people have gone in voiceover. So,
Good.
what makes a good voice and how do you bring that into voiceover to make a good career for yourself? And if people, I mean, if whatever you describe to be a good voice, if it doesn't tally with certain people, depending on how you define it, right? Do they have a future in voiceover? I know that's like a big question, but then I want to hear. And Sarah, too, I'd really, really like
Sarah,
to hear
please
your
answer.
perspective.
Sarah, please.
Oh my, this question deep, Abby.
See, eh?
Like three
Oh, deep
questions in
gone.
one that
Oh,
you asked,
deep
Tico.
gone.
Oh,
Oh,
deep
deep.
See,
go.
See, this
Eh,
this is okay. Okay, first off, let me put a disclaimer out there. I don't have the answers. All right, I don't have all the answers, but there are responses, reasonable
mm,
ones at that, and I totally understand where you're coming from. It might be in a different, even in a different, from a different perspective, but generally, I think I understand what you mean. Um, the very first thing, there's a uniqueness with every voice. Everyone has there's that unique sound. I refrain from using special, right? Not special, unique. There is a take for example. I remember the story of Red Pepper. I don't know if you've heard of him. He's the popular British voice that
yeah,
always mimics Don LaFontaine's In
in
a
a world.
World.
Trailer
Yeah, yeah,
voiceover.
and Red Pepper is he was working in a train station as the announcer.
Yeah.
That was his story. Just calling out a Leicester Square City 1.0 10 o'clock and doing things like that. And departure times and arrival times. He was just doing his job. And then a movie director was taking the train and heard his voice. I was like, oh, okay, who is this person? He had to leave the train and went to meet the station master and asked for the manager of the station. Like, I need to see this person. I need to see who and meet this person. And that's how his career started. As we speak, Red Pepper's voice is insured, right?
What? His
He's
voice is insured?
oh yeah, check him out.
I need to know more
Yeah.
about insurance, boys.
See,
Insurance.
Tico, we gotta know more about
I'm
this.
Oh
telling
yeah.
you, I've
You
been
know,
going crazy
yeah.
about it for a while now.
You see, I'm answering those questions that you asked.
Yeah,
The success.
yeah.
Sometimes, like, I would say recognizing a good voice at its best, really, and I think everyone would agree with me on this. Doesn't matter where you're from. If you're in the industry, you would agree. Is clarity. You have to. It doesn't matter the language you speak. The clarity in your diction when you pronounce. If you have that, at best, you sound good. We're not talking music, or we're not talking singing. That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about voiceovers. Once you have a clear voice, there is a clarity about the way you speak, right?
Yeah.
It's a potential good voice. Now it might sound scrawny. You might sound like this, might not be able to talk properly. People can't hear you. But then if you can work on getting clearer than that, you'd find out that, yeah. Then there are those who have that uniqueness I was talking about. There's a uniqueness that some people have. Maybe the ability to switch pitch and switch tone, right? Now you see that you are entering the realm of acting, not just voiceovers. So at its base, have a clear voice, the ability to speak clearly. Once you have that, I think it's not about how deep you sound or how high you sound. No, it's not about that. It's about the ability to speak well, and people can hear whatever language you're speaking. If you are speaking French, you're able to do that fluently, and you are proficient in the language, those kind of things. So if it's that, I think anybody, it's just that when you get into the nitty gritty, you get into the heat of it, you now see how serious it gets, because we still have some people saying things like, it's just to talk now. You just talk.
Tell
And
me
you're like,
about it.
what? You just talk? Like, really? Is that what you think? I remember back then, just a side track.
Yeah.
Let me digress for a bit. When I was
Yeah.
still in radio, there was this time we started some trouble on air, calling out some mismanagement of funds in Abuja. You can imagine that. And I was producing the program that was happening, and we got attacked. Let me just leave it there. So yeah, they sent some people to the station to, handle us. And then,
Wow.
some people were, people came and were like, we just made content out of the whole thing. So yeah, what do you think about this thing that happened to the staff of so? And then we started getting reactions from people. So some people started saying, even these journalists or this radio station, they like to talk too much. It's just to talk and talk and talk and
That
talk,
is
and
literally
that's their
your
own.
job as a journalist.
I'm like, duh. I'm okay. I don't write. I
If
speak.
nobody,
I talk.
and sorry to cut you short, but you know that that's exactly one of the things that's missing in today's journalism and, with
Yeah.
radio, TV. It's like, and that's why you see a lot of things go on as they do, because radio presenters, journalists, these are the people that hold authorities to higher standards.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're telling them to shut up, they are speaking in your interest. They're trying
Yeah,
to protect you by holding these guys to higher standards. But if you're telling them
exactly.
to shut up, that's why you see a lot of people getting away with things that they're getting away with now. I mean,
Facts.
just like this whole saga with the Erisco tomato paste and all those things. A lot of people, I was expecting to hear more buzz about it, aside from just online, but, from media houses and for stations to carry it. But people weren't, like, the bodies that were supposed to be talking about it weren't talking about it.
Yeah.
And it's like, you let these guys get away with feeling like they can do whatever they want, however they want it, because you don't hold them to higher standards.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
That,
just
that, that
on
was
that
that
note.
was
Please
basically.
carry on.
Yeah, yeah. So no, but you're very correct, Sarah. That was what it was. But then we the crop of radio presenters at the time, we had this knack for whatever they tell us, we use it and repurpose it for content, right? So we were like, you know what? Don't worry, let's just listen to what they have to say. And some people, they talked of different, like, this was like radio station people calling out other radio stations on other radio stations, right? Saying, "Even this one of this one FM, and this one of this one FM, and even you of this FM, and no. And then I took down some notes, listening to them, and while hosting the show. And then
Yeah.
I had a kind of an idea to bring people, to the radio station, and you want to be on air, come on and let's see what you can do. Say it's to talk, right? Just to talk. Okay, no problem.
You
You
talk
come
that
here
talk.
and you talk the talk. What will happen is, what we did now, like, at the time it was looking like folks didn't have didn't have anything to, really say again on radio. There was a season that it was always looking like that. It happened in Abuja, happened in Lagos. Like people are always just talking, they don't have anything to say. So we started like bringing out, content, stuff to really talk about, because that was the era. Like I said, times were changing. Sometimes people want
Mm-hmm.
to really hear what you have to say, not just music. So we at the time, we just even split the whole thing into two. Daytime was more of flagship programs, and we spoke much more than in the evenings where people just want to chill and listen to music, right?
Mm-hmm.
So one of my weekend programs was that. I practically just, the producer at the time, he headed the whole thing and said, you know what, all our segments now will be picking people. Oh, you've won a co-host session with this, radio presenter. You come and stay for this show, and let's hear you. People will
Shebi you
rate you,
have
people will
mouths.
rank you. You know, and it started to let people know that
Mm-hmm.
this
Mm-hmm.
is not easy.
Yeah, as much
All
as it
right,
seems
that you
like it is, it's
yeah,
actually
like you are
not.
just talking, right? That's what it's about. That you curate content and script, and you are informed about it, and you research it. There used to be times, most of us when we started back then, right? You are the one that will research, you are the one that will script, you are the one that will edit, you are the one that will not still
Tell
read
me
what
about
you
it. Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know yeah, you'd be the same person doing all these. Then
Yeah.
maybe okay, you spend a few years up the ladder, then you have someone who researches for you, and all you have to do is read, understand, and go on air. But then we did all this for these same people. We will gather the content for you. Don't worry. Just come and talk. You know, and with time, they started to give some kind of respect. Like, okay, this is not your everyday walk in the park, right? It's not
Mm-hmm.
it's not something that you just do.
Yeah.
So same thing translates to voiceovers and being a voice actor. It's important. You just don't talk. It's not just one
It's
of
not
those
just
things. And
talking.
people understanding this will let people know that it's a career like every other, right?
Yeah.
It might not have the maybe, would I call it, the history and the pride, of generations that's documented, because I can prove that voiceover started a long time ago. I know I teach
Yep.
all those things in
Yep.
class, but
Yeah.
the thing is, generally speaking, it might not have the kind of exposure, especially here in Africa, that it should, but it doesn't make it less of a job.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, having a clear voice and being able to speak up as clearly as you can, it's a potential good voice, and have to put some respect on that ability. It is.
Absolutely.
Nice.
Yep.
Okay, Sarah. So let
You
me
know,
hear what you have to say about clear voice.
okay.
I mean, about voice. A
About
good
what?
voice. Yeah. A good
A
voice.
good
What makes
voice.
a good voice?
Yeah.
To be honest, he's kind of like covered it. I think what makes a good voice, yeah, a bit. Back to that, this question is deep. I think it's one thing to have a good voice, right? It's another thing to be able to use that good voice in voiceover, right?
Mhm.
Because to me, I feel like there's no bad voice. I'll be very honest. It's the ability to act. It's the ability to shape your voice into what is needed to express the emotions of a character in a given material.
Mm.
Because
Okay.
if you can do that, I mean, Don Jazzy sings now.
Mhm.
Do you get what I mean?
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
you'd see that. I won't be like he look at someone like Aquafina, for example. She's not a voice
Mm.
artist. Aquafina is not even necessarily an actress. She's a comedian,
Yeah, she's a comedian.
right?
That's true.
But
Yeah.
Aquafina has featured in so many movies and cartoons because of, and her voice is not the usual voiceover artist type voice.
Mhm.
Do you understand what I'm saying? But her
Yeah.
ability to express the emotions of her characters in whatever role she finds herself has made her, well, I mean, there's also, the part of her fame, but her ability to do that is why she's still getting hired to do a lot more roles than some voice actors in the industry.
Of course. Of
Do you
course.
understand? Because
Yeah.
she's not rigid or feels like this is the way it should be done. This is the way it has been done. Do you understand? And it's not, I would now say it's also her voice, but being able to just really express that character that needs to be expressed in the way that it should. I feel like that's really what makes it. So, but if we're now talking about, just a good voice, for voice sake, yeah, your the ability to enunciate and speak clearly in a way that people can clearly hear what you're saying. That's a good voice, but that doesn't necessarily get you in the door. It may even get you in the door, but it won't keep you in the room.
I have
That's a part two. That's a part two I didn't answer. You see that other one? Part two of the question. I didn't answer that question because well, okay. Let me just say this, right? There are so many moving parts, regarding the craft of voiceovers. Understanding that it's a craft in the first place, that it's a profession, it's something that it's work. It's not just fun, right? You can have fun while doing it, of course, but it's a lot of work. There's the business of it, right? And that business is one of the things that sustains certain people. Like you said, Tico, like, those who don't have necessarily the good voice, but their careers are, it's basically because there's a business side of it that they have a hold on. All right. Now, the kind of business is another topic. That's now another, the way they handle the business. Is it by keeping good relationships? Is it by focusing on one niche? Is it by, making sure that they hound certain companies? There are different ways that the business can morph, and it's personalized to that extent. There's someone that I glean a lot of knowledge from, and his name is Bill Dewey's. Bill Dewey sends a ton of newsletters in a week. Like, the strategy he uses for that. I remember when I first watched his one of the first content that he did, like 10 years ago. He said that that's his bread and butter, sending emails to large corporations. And the large corporations, especially abroad, they'd rather just directly deal with you than go to some agency that they pay millions of dollars for, right? They'd rather just meet your direct representative and, maybe pay half of what they would have paid an agency. You understand? So he deals directly, sends emails to the marketers. Understanding the business structure of even your niche is also another important, aspect of the business. So yeah, you might have a good voice, but if you first of all not understood how to use that good voice, like you said, Sarah, and then the kind of business structure that you'd use to attach the craft to, so that's really what makes the success of the career. Some of us are into just e-learning, and there are ed tech companies that they just focus on. That's their niche. That's what they do. Some are into just narration, and then Nigel Wild is their, constant, and you understand. David Attenborough, I'm sure you guys know him.
Yeah.
He is
veteran.
a king, and with his, and sometimes I just think that he does not even need to act. He just talks and just,
It's gotten to that point. Yeah.
gotten to that point now.
It's second nature.
It's second nature for him. So, he sees some biological or environmental thing that tickles his fancy, and he's off on talking and scripting about it, and content is made from it.
Yeah.
So yeah,
And
I
he
think
moves
in a
across
nutshell,
from his
I think that's really what it is.
That reminds me of Themba Robin of South Africa. Such a funny
Yeah.
personality. He does something similar. I mean, he's been doing that recently. Anyway, so let's talk about this issue of voice. And I asked that question because I really want to know what you guys think. And I think you guys have been on point, even though you answered it from, perspectives that matter or how you see it. Um, so why am I talking about a good voice? I have I've been opportune to train a lot of people, and for some people, they in quote have a good voice, but like Sarah rightly mentioned, there is that vacuum of knowing how to use the voice. For some people, they sort of like understand the science of acting, but it just seems like they don't have a kind of definition of what a good voice should be, which I'll now go to, which is what Boz was talking about when he said clarity. Um, being able to act doesn't necessarily mean you know how to speak eloquently. Yeah, clearly.
Eloquence, yeah.
Because
Clarity,
some people lack that. It's either maybe due to speech defect, or they aren't just used to respecting words. You know, they just read shabbily. They don't pay attention to the pauses, to the commas, to the last
Grammar
consonant.
itself, man.
Those grammar. Those are things that we were taught as broadcasters. You're reading, and then they will stop you and say,
copy.
read,
And actually
right?
read it like it and let it not sound like you are reading.
Yeah, reading.
Yes.
You see that's the pro now for being a broadcaster.
Yeah.
That's a pro. The pro for being a broadcaster, yeah.
Yeah,
It's
but
true.
I'm just
when
even
you
like,
learn how to cast the news and not make it seem like you are reading the news, you know.
Yeah.
Please carry on.
As believable as possible. Make it as believable.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm just trying to even speak to the idea of having a good voice. I feel like Sarah said something that there's no bad voice, and that struck me. So I had to take a break and think about it very well. Asking this question to voice actors is synonymous to asking stage actors that are there bad looking or good looking actors, because our voices are what people hear. Like that's what we are selling. For actors, it's their physical presence, expression.
You know that
right?
there is no ugly actor.
Yeah, so I see where you're coming from, right?
Yeah, because now there's this man, I can't remember his name. He's Russian, right? He may not have the physical features that make that, today's beauty standards, right? But the characters he has played, he's perfect for those roles. Like, it's almost like he walked in the room.
Is he popular?
If you've seen The Blacklist, you would know him. And there's this other movie that I've seen.
Are you sure he's Russian? I have a feeling I know who you are talking about. Was he in Constantine?
No. He played what character was it in Hotel Transylvania? The Addams Family. The Addams Family. Way back, one of the first versions of the Addams Family. He acted as, is it Bigfoot or Frankenstein? One of the two.
Okay.
He has very odd features,
Yeah.
His features are very unique.
Yeah.
So now, for someone like that, he's not ugly. He's perfectly fit for certain roles.
Yeah.
Like, nobody's going to drag those kind of roles with him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's really tall. I'm sure he should be like 7 feet. He should be like 7 feet tall. Yeah. He's really tall. Like, certain characters he plays, you're like, nah, there's nobody that could have played this role like him. And I feel like that's how it is with voice acting.
Yeah.
That's why you see sometimes they have to discontinue some shows after the voice actor passes or is not on board anymore, because nobody can get that, except they now decide to change the character's voice. Nobody can get it like the way that, like, your voice is so unique. Just like, some facial features are so unique that when you walk in the room, before you even speak, they know this is our guy.
I totally agree with that. It aligns very well with acting. So you want to say, go ahead, please, T-Code.
Please go ahead. You're trying to make the points.
This then implies that if certain actors are preference for certain kind of roles because the character expected to embody that role already has like the writer has already said, okay, this person doesn't have to be good looking in the general sense of what good looking means, right? So you're not going to take like a good looking actor in quotes. Nobody's bad looking, or we're just saying, for the sake of this conversation, you're going to take a very, very handsome guy to act the bad looking in quote guy, right? That then means that your person, your look, your voice can be limiting regardless of how good you can act.
Absolutely.
Very true.
Now,
Absolutely. Sorry, before you continue,
okay,
hold that thought, right?
Yeah.
Hold that thought. I want to just quickly use it to touch on something. The other time I made a video on my Instagram because I noticed that a lot of times, and people beat themselves up, and it's something that used to happen to me before. I would beat myself up for not getting certain roles that I auditioned for. But then it hits me that sometimes it's not even you. It has nothing to do with you. It has nothing to do with you. I know I'm a great voice actor, right?
Yeah.
But a lot of times, literally with Roy Okupe, I don't know what influenced their casting decision. It was for him, when I finally got on my callback call, they knew this is the scene that let us know that you were going to be our Iyanu. It was a no-brainer. Now, everything about me comes into play in that decision. It could be my person, my voice, the way I expressed those emotions in that script. There's a lot that comes into play. Sometimes it's not even about you. When you don't get a role, it's not about you. You're just not the voice for the job. You're just not the physique they're looking for the job. You may be a talented actor, but your voice or your look does not help to bring the vision of the writer, what the writer had in mind. It doesn't help to bring that character to life because you just do not, you don't embody the vision they had for that character.
Yeah.
It has nothing to do with you.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm so passionate about this because I see a lot of people beat themselves up for this thing. And
I know,
it's
right?
not about you. It's not about you.
I know,
Just
right?
the one for the job.
I like how this conversation is going because you're really getting to where I'm going to with all of this. Now, so let's
I
even take.
smell where you are going, but carry on.
Okay. So back to the acting analogy, right? That then means that for certain kind of projects, production, let's give an example. Say a beauty brand. A beauty brand would likely go for a beautiful model, female most likely, or a male, right? If it's a fashion brand, they'll go for like a chiseled bodied guy and all of that. But majorly in the world of advertising, they would most likely go for people who have the good looks. There's a type, whether we like to admit it or not.
A preference that they have.
A preference that works. Okay, just like, let's even say for MCing, for instance. You don't necessarily need to know how to MC, but you just have some features. Maybe your voice is clear, you look cute well, you are tall, you're good looking, you have that good stature. People would say, I would like you to MC. I remember one of my friend wanting me to MC his wedding when I had never MC'd a wedding in my life.
Your life.
I was just so used to doing virtual, hosting.
Good, and you speak well, and you're like,
it was like, guy, it has to be you. I've seen you since university days, and I'm like, now this guy go do my MC, and I'm like, guy, I don't want to use your wedding to do practice. No.
But so the point gotta start somewhere, man. You got to start somewhere. You got to do what you got to do.
I know, right? The point I'm making is that
things like
go on, please. Go.
No, this thing for situations like that where the person insists, right? Because I feel like also because of you people's history, maybe you know his babe, like for someone like me now, when I'm getting married, I would definitely want somebody that has known our love story, knows our history to be in that position of the MC, so to say. Do you understand?
Yeah.
So I think for that person, that's exactly what the person wanted. And if that's it, if I feel like in situations like that, like now, there are certain clients, there are some parts of voiceover that I don't do, not because I don't know how to do it, but just because it's not my,
Yeah.
it's not,
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah.
I would
Or your
rather
brand.
just do animation and audiobooks all day long. But if you want me to do a commercial and you insist that it's because of my voice, there's just something that's in you that wants me to do that voiceover, I won't decline.
Yeah.
That's what makes me a professional. I will go and learn. Like John said, I don't mind taking classes just to deliver. So I think like it also contributes to you being flexible and versatile. You can use it as a learning experience. Just don't fall the bag.
My
Because
reputation is at
they're
stake.
going to blame you. They're going to blame
Because
you.
even
Like,
if
it's not
even
that
if
guy that
my
hosted our wedding. Very good
and
guy.
even if my guy was going to be like,
That's a risk.
now my guy, even if you know do well, now my guy. Do you know the hundreds of people in that wedding that because of me they will not
I will
forget
call
that
or not
wedding?
call back. Call
See,
or not call back
I'll
for
beg. so so back to what I was.
How did that story
And
end? How
it's
did that story
different
end? I'm
because
I
it's
actually
not
live.
interested.
do.
That's true, Sha. In that
Oh.
kind of situation, it's unique because it's live. You
Ah,
cannot get feedback and say,
yeah.
okay, should we try it in
If
this direction? That's true, Sha. That's true.
if it was like you're telling me now that you want me to draw your portrait, say now me must draw am. I feel try that one. Say now only you go carry this thing.
It's
Not say
true,
now you.
Sha.
But
It's
something is
true.
not
And then
public.
in the creation process, he's there with you to say, I think we should go in this direction more. I think we should do like
Exactly.
this more.
Do you
But
understand?
not
But some
wedding.
things, my next client will be part of your guests where I don't go mess up. I can't be like
But
specific
to be
video me
honest,
they talk
Ba,
rubbish, put them for social media.
I still believe, Ba. I've been reading this book, The Creative Act by Rick Rubin.
I
Right,
should
and
even
that book has
continue reading
taught
that
me
book.
so much. Absolutely, I think
Yeah.
it's something every creative should read.
Yeah.
Or
Okay.
even if you feel like you're not a creative and you are still looking at the creative space, it's something everyone should read. It has so many
Yeah.
lessons about life and not just being a creative, right? And he talks about how awakening your inner child and just allowing yourself the innocence and the spontaneity and the curiosity that children have, right? The best of artists who are still able to do some of their best work are some of those people that allow those childlike attributes shine through even as an adult. So I
True.
think so I think you should always still let that the fear of doing something wrong or embarrassing yourself or looking some type of way, it limits the kind of experiences we allow ourselves to have and thereby hindering the growth that we would have. I say this to you so that you will embrace new experiences.
Shay,
It's
I know
everything
how
that will go
empty your
well.
wedding like this.
No, it's my way to do practice job.
Oh my God.
But you get what I mean.
Imagine.
I know what you're saying, no, but the stakes are high, I beg.
I know. You can do it in front of a mirror for like 1 month.
I know,
Wait.
right?
But yeah, I mean, my point still remains, it may not be emceeing, right?
I
It may not
agree
be
with you.
emceeing, but
Yeah.
certainly, I feel like the fear of embarrassment or the fear of doing things, a certain way because we've gotten to a certain level in our career, I feel like it shouldn't stop you from trying new things because then how do you grow?
I agree.
How do you diversify,
I agree with you
so there's that.
100%.
Please carry on with the points you were trying to make.
Yeah, so yeah, back to the point is like there's a type that's although that the way the world evolves, things then start to get into the pie. They then begin to allow things. For instance, in the beauty world, we now have plus size people being models, like brands can confidently do that. I'm going somewhere. In the voiceover space, most people, especially in Nigeria or in Africa, because let's look at voiceover, right? What's the highest selling niche in voiceover? I mean,
That would be
you guys
commercials.
randomly. commercials, right?
That should be commercials.
Yeah.
Commercials, right? But then commercial is like also in the advertising space, right? I mean, that's why people use commercials for advertisement. That then means that there is a type of voice that most brands would like. And it's not like there's just one type globally. I mean, based on the industry that the brand operates, they usually like have like a type, you know, like a family
Yes.
brand will have like a
Yeah.
type of voice. A liquor brand would have like a type of voice. Do you understand what I'm saying? So
Absolutely.
let's take it back to movies. Actors that don't have features physically, maybe vocally, that fit into the stereotype for the advertising space, they still find fulfillment being actors in the acting space itself. But if all that actors were limited to doing was in the advertising space, then some actors would not make it. Now, when you take that back to voiceover, I believe the reason why some voice actors struggle is because it's not like they don't know how to act. The kind of voice that they have is not the type in some advertising circles or in the commercial space. If we had an industry that was like acting, right? Like in the animation space, most people will find expression as long as they understand how acting works. But because they don't have like a type or they don't fit into that type, for instance. And that's why I asked the question, what makes a good voice? You listened to a voice, boss, and immediately you're like, this is a good voice. I mean, it's not like you've not been hearing other people, but the moment you hear a particular voice, you're like, you wait, right? Back to what Sarah says, there's no bad voice. So yes, like, as long as you know how to use it to act, yes. But we can't deny the fact that there is a type that we all respond to. You just hear this person's very like, oh my God, like, who's that guy?
I get what you mean.
Yeah. So some people will book more gigs in the commercial space, not necessarily because they are better than you, but because they just have a voice type
A certain
that
type of
sells in commercials.
Yeah.
That fails.
Yeah. So if we had a bigger voice acting industry, which would be determined by the need for it. For instance, if we had need for more audio dramas and animation, perhaps more people will find, expression more and maybe more jobs and stuff like that. I know that this theory might need a lot of balancing, but I just wanted to put that out there because I have interacted with certain talents. For some of them, it's a question of them just fine-tuning their voice to be better at eloquence and all of that. But for some people, they just have a different voice type. I don't know if you've heard some kind of voices, maybe like a female having a male type of voice that you can't really place where it should be, something like that. And then they approach you as a coach, and you yourself, say, walk the year. You don't want to discourage the person, but you just know that. See, a client will approach you and say, "I need a female voice," but you'll not be able to. You will not be able to refer that person. Not because the person is your student or true, but you yourself, say. Say if I submit 5 demos, is it true?
Wait.
Oh, a male that has a female sounding voice.
I want to ask one question.
Yeah.
I want to ask one question. See.
Yeah.
You see, is it because you have encountered this a lot? Is that why you asked that question? Like, you've encountered people that, this one, now serious work. Or maybe I know fit self. Make I just tell myself the truth. Let me just be truthful. I can't do this with this because of the way the person sounds. I wanted to just know.
I think the reason is because I've encountered many people who, in the context of having a good voice,
Yeah.
just as we have described, right? They don't
Yeah.
make
Yeah.
that, that margin, that cut.
Okay.
But
That
they
whole, being successful with what they're doing and moving,
no, like
climbing that ladder.
in context of having a good voice, like they have a lot of speech defects. Some of them are
Okay.
natural,
Okay.
some of them are artificial. Some of them they just
Okay.
need to because when you're analyzing the way people talk, you begin to realize that some things are from
There are things
when
that are
when
off.
they
There are things that
when they
are
were growing up.
developmental from when they were little. Yeah.
Yeah,
Developmental. Some
it'll
are
take a
psychological.
lot of
Yeah.
work.
Yeah.
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 So in cases like that, when I meet people like that, but you now realize that these people, they are so hyped and pumped. They really, really believe in this
They
thing.
can succeed in this.
Yes. So when they
So
reach
how
out,
did you scale this hurdle? Or
me
how do you
or
scale such hurdles?
I first do a diagnosis. I don't run into because the truth again is that there's no one size fits all. When you are,
Okay.
especially when you're approaching mentoring people, training people, this person may have that good voice, and all you just need to do is help the person know how to use it. But there are certain people I meet, I be like, no, you need an elocutionist. I'm not an elocutionist. I may speak well, but I don't have the rule book. Like I'm not trained to teach you. So you need to. So I first do my diagnosis, and I try to figure out where the problem. I once trained an elocutionist. I don't want to say I hope she doesn't hear this, but I once trained an elocutionist, and we spent over an hour trying to teach her how to read. It sounds
This is mind-boggling. Wait,
how to
an
read.
elocutionist.
Do you know our problem? Do you know what the problem was? The problem is not that she didn't understand the rules of whatever she says she teaches. She has a mother tongue that like is how you would hear someone from the north and you know this person's from the north.
The
Someone
accent,
from the east
and leanings on
you
pronunciation.
get. So it has really it has marinated, and it's you can just by saying a sentence you can hear. Now it gets more interesting.
I think I understand what you're saying. Like, because you have certain people that maybe you're speaking English, but you're Yoruba, so you speak that English like it's Yoruba.
Yeah, see, it gets more interesting, right? Because she does her practice majorly in her region. So nobody kind of like checks and says this is not, and she's more like an authority there.
So see, that's why I'm saying that there's no bad voice. Sorry, hold that thought. But it's not everybody that must do English voiceover.
That's another angle to it.
Do you understand? It's not everybody that must do English voiceover. I mean, now more than ever, there's demand for indigenous voices.
For local voice, exactly. That was what I was saying earlier on. Local.
I heard the amount of money they were paying somebody to do voiceover in Ibibio.
Sure.
Wow. I was like, I can learn languages too,
Oh yeah, it's part of the versatility we're talking about.
It's crazy. So people keep doing that because they believe that, in order to make money from this voiceover scene, I need to be able to speak like this, like this. Do you understand? It's just like the way there are French voiceover artists. You don't have to speak English. You don't have to do voiceover in English. Do you understand? Like, stories are being told in our indigenous languages now, so you don't have to speak English.
Yeah.
You don't have to do voiceover in English. So for certain types of people, for those kind of people, they have the voice, but what they have is an elocution problem. If they are willing to learn and are able to learn, they can do that. But if they are still having that challenge, know when to stop. Go in the direction with, less resistance, where you already have your strengths. Go in that direction of the language, because I'm sure that indigenous people, because of that way you speak, they will enjoy voiceover from you more than somebody whose first language is English. and is now doing voiceover in another in that native language. I'm Yoruba now, right? I'm Yoruba. I know that I don't look it, but and I speak Yoruba. But if I do a Yoruba voiceover, you may not. It will sound okay, but I can't. You cannot enjoy
It's
it
maybe
like the
kind of
way
like
you would
four.
enjoy it when a Bisola Whittling does it, or when a Sheyi Vibe does it. Do you understand what I'm saying? I don't know if you guys know Sheyi the
Yeah.
Vibe.
Yeah.
Yeah,
She does
yeah.
Yoruba voiceovers. Do you
Or
understand? If
Wally
Sheyi should
Bams.
do Yoruba voiceover like this, your tummy will be so you. Do you understand what I mean? So,
Yeah.
like, I mean, there's also Bisola Whittling, right?
Yeah.
Who else can I? Those are just the two people
Wally
off the top of
Bams.
my head right now. Do you understand? There's Wale Bams too. There are certain people
Yeah.
that
Yeah, a couple of them.
in that direction. Now, those ones are somewhat bad examples because they also do really great with English voiceover. I can't think of anybody off the top of my head that does mostly Yoruba voiceovers. Nobody
I know
comes to
them,
mind
but they're
right
not
now.
popular. Yeah.
Sure, you get, but
Yeah.
there are certain people like that do great in that direction. So why you don't have to try and fit into a mold that wasn't created with you in mind?
Yeah.
Do you
Anyways,
understand? So yeah, that's just what I think.
I think I'll just conclude by saying that I need people to understand that becoming a voice actor is beyond just all those acting classes and performance things. Check the foundation that you're trying to build on. Have you made peace with the language itself? One of the reasons why we would enjoy certain people like Sarah or Boz or Femi Biggs or whoever we've mentioned on the podcast is not just because they know how to act. It's because we hear them clearly. They pronounce the words well. They found peace with the language. Imagine, say, this podcast now just a talk, just a blue nonsense grammar, just the, obviously that would now reflect in our voiceover.
Yeah.
So understand the language, whether it's English, whether it's Hausa, whatever language it is, get familiar with it so well, and then you can build on it. And again, it says don't feel like you see, so the point I'm trying to make is that I imagine that I don't have a type of voice that somebody would be like, wait a minute, who's that guy? I imagine that, and I'm trying to like help people understand that your voice matters. I don't have a Lord Frank kind of voice, so I'm not going to, like Sarah was saying, I may not book more gigs in that category, that niche that his voice is the stereotype. You may not have a young type of voice that makes your voice the go-to for maybe some type of animation or some type of brand, but your voice would work where it is needed. And the people that you think that are booking all of those gigs, if you put them in that your category, they may not, right? So whoever is thinking about giving up, it's about case scenario, not about you being good or not. I don't know if that makes sense. Yeah. Wow. It's been a long talk today, man.
Yes, it's been a long talk. See, before we go, right? There's something that me and Tico talked about that we have to talk about before the end of this show.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
Recently, there's been a trend of non-Nigerians acting Nigerian roles, and this is in film as well, not just voiceover. Yeah, like now, for example, there's a production of Things Fall Apart going on right now, and Idris Elba is the one playing the lead character. With Asake's new what's the name of that song? Asake's new album, right?
Yeah.
Idris Elba did the voiceover and did Yoruba eulogy.
Yeah, with some pidgin in it too.
With some pidgin in it too, right? Which other example can I use? Several examples like that. There was Concussion, which was about a Nigerian, and I think it was Will Smith that played the lead role, and he was acting as a Nigerian.
Yeah.
So there are all other like Nigerian movies. That one is even okay. That one is not centered around, Nigerian culture and all those things. It just happens to be a
Okay, yeah,
Nigerian lead character. Shay gets, and
yeah.
the person can just be of Nigerian descent. So I won't use that as an example, right? But for Nigerian productions, or like Nigerian, like Things Fall Apart is a staple in the
It's
Nigerian
traditional.
literature history.
Yeah.
And it's being acted by a non-Nigerian.
Mhm.
What do you think about things like that, both in voiceover and in film? What are your thoughts on that? Do you think it's something that, I mean, it's art. Let's explore this, right? Or do you think, nah, if representation matters, like, what are your thoughts on it? Which side of the fence would you say you're on?
Okay, another deep question. Can you guys hear me?
We can hear
Yes, we
you.
can.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
I hear
So
you.
you see, truth is, truth is, like you said, it's art. Let me just piggyback on that for a second. It's art, but because it's art does not mean it should be disrespected. A lot of people see it as some kind of disrespect. Like what? For real? You know? But then again, personally, right? Personally, I think we have every culture and every region, every country, every continent that has its stories, right? Within these continents and at its core, these cultures that have these stories, when they are being told, they should be told properly,
Mm, mm,
appropriately. This is my personal opinion, all right? And I believe that okay, so let me just share a quick throwback. This issue, this question came up in my class last week while I was teaching the students because I like them to be as just the way we're talking right
open and
now.
interactive.
Yeah, I try to
Yeah.
make them as well. I get to now understand their person and know how they react to the course itself and how they can
Mhm.
channel that person into whatever they are doing as voice actors. And someone brought up a very interesting perspective, which I understand, but I don't particularly agree with. But there's like I said, personally, I believe that every story should be told properly, be it fictitious or real
Based on a
life.
real
Yeah,
event.
based on the true story. If it's fictitious, no problem. But remember that as fictitious as it is an original of the creator, whoever created it, you know, made that story up. Now, if you are going to be making an adaptation, this is still on the personal note. If you are going to be making an adaptation of something, right, make it the way it is supposed to be. It's important to keep that aspect because it's not your story, it's someone else's. And you are making it either to honor the person or show how great the story is. You have your, objectives for it. Now, if you are going to be making it different from what it is, that is still your prerogative, right? It's your decision to do so. But don't say you want to make something the way they did it here and go and do something else, right? That's my personal view on this issue. Idris Elba is a fantastic actor. You see, it now draws back to even what Tico was asking about voices and the example you gave Sarah about, acting. Not every role is for you, and that's one of the most difficult parts of this creative industry. It is so vast and so unique that it can include the whole world in its own right in different things. I think it was more of a business decision than a creative decision that they took. It was more that it was more of that regarding that. And because if we it can go deeper, it's just that I'm seeing we've taken almost like 1 hour something here, because
It's all
the
right.
truth
Go on.
is there's much more to it on the cultural side. I believe Africans should take, we as Africans should take responsibility for our stories. Don't let people tell your stories for you. You understand? Now, like it or not, Chinua Achebe has passed. The author of, No Longer at Ease and,
Yeah.
Things Fall Apart. And I have not dug into that story properly, but those who sold the rights to whoever they sold it to did not handle the situation properly. I don't
I
believe
guess it just
Chinua
never
Achebe.
came to mind. They never thought they would have.
Again, like I said, it's a business. It's business. They had looked at, because there are a lot of. I've been through certain things in this industry that has made me understand how people view, the finances attached to the craft, or the money you can make, the business side of it to the craft. That I've come to understand that a huge part of your personality is also important. If you're the kind of person, if you're a money hungry, money grabbing individual, right, it would show in what you are doing. Yes, you have to make money from it, but it's important that you understand that it's not all about money. You're putting you're putting something out there that would impact people, that would influence lives, right? So it's not just a regular you go and put block somewhere, or you just do this and you get paid. You understand? Everybody's job has a way it impacts on, different people. That being said, for this particular situation, the business side just took over everything. They just look at it like Idris Elba is black. I mean, he has roots, African roots. Of course, his wife is Moroccan, and I mean, he understands, the vibe. And he's an international star. You know. Now, another person, the perspective I said someone gave, because what I talked about in class was the culture being misappropriated. Now, that was what I was focusing on. But then the truth is, if we ourselves, people who have the means and the ways, do not invest in the culture, in the art, other people will do it for you. And they will do it in the shabbiest way possible, as long as they can get a buck out of it. They will not work as hard as you would have if you were the one, you know, doing or telling
Telling your
that
story by
story.
yourself.
Yeah, by yourself. We have so many kingpins when it comes to, money and finances in Africa. Very few invest in the preservation of the culture, adapting it to new media, showcasing it on the world stage. Very, very few. And the West sees it and they're like, whoa, this is a very good opportunity.
You mean they're
And
not
they
doing
move in.
this already?
Yeah, and they move in.
Let's take advantage of it,
Let's take
and let's
advantage of
do it.
this, right? I, I,
Yeah.
I remember discussing something similar with a T code, and Iwaju. I'm sure you guys have
Yeah.
seen it. You
Yeah.
see what they did with Iwaju.
Yeah.
Iwaju was fantastic. It had the Disney hallmark animation style, but you could tell that this is not America. This is not the West. This is so not. It's just like what they also did with Black Panther. What Marvel did with Black Panther. Of course, it's Africa. It's just
Yeah.
the Africa we are not used to.
Yeah.
Wow. You know? And there's nothing like blending and telling a story appropriately. That's why Black Panther did as good as it did. I used to read the comics and the graphic novels. Black Panther is a very underrated comic character. It was always,
Yeah.
Spider-Man and all the other popular Marvel characters. But then Black Panther came out as live action, and it broke world box offices worldwide, because the director, and the funny thing about it, the director is an American, a black American.
Yeah, Ryan
Ryan
Coogler.
Coogler, Ryan Coogler took his time and came to Africa and studied. In fact, down to the music, right? The name of the audio sound designer escapes me now. I think
Ludwig.
Ludwig Göransson, I
Yeah.
believe. Yeah, he actually spent time with a Senegalese musician that was touring the continent. Like, when you see how much of an
That's nice.
immersive art it is, you would understand that when you are telling a story, tell it properly. Black
Mm-hmm.
Panther was fictitious now. I mean, it's fiction, but it was well told. Even though one can say Chadwick Boseman is an American, but you see that the accent he used, you'd find it across the continent. That
True.
English accent
That's
is one
true.
that you
That's
hear
true.
with Kenyans. You'd hear that
Mm-hmm.
kind of accent with Zambians. You hear that with Ugandans, right? There was also somebody who was a Nigerian there, and you heard the Nigerian accent. So you would understand that those who are watching it would learn about it. That this is how these people sound, and this is what the culture is like. So on that, regarding this, it's basically it was a business decision. It was not a creative decision. And bet you, like, if you if they did better, right? I don't know who sold the rights of whatever, whether it's Asake's side or things fall apart. What I know is that Idris Elba is out to make that money. He is as far as concerned. What would now make him stand out and would make him be a choice for even maybe better projects is if he does his own research. Just imagine I think Idris Elba, he comes to Africa like every now and then. Last year he was in Rwanda, stayed how many months, then went to Tanzania. He's always doing that, and I'm sure that's one of the reasons. I think he wants to immerse himself more in the culture, right? If he, for any reason at all, for any reason, he secretly steals into Nigeria and lives in somewhere between River State and Imo State, just for the purpose of this thing, then you see how well it would come out. Because the truth is, if it's a direct adaptation they're doing, then you have to represent Okonkwo the way Okonkwo was. You have to represent every other character the way
They
it
were.
was. Yeah, the way
Yeah.
they were in the actual novel. So basically, I just think that's what it is. Business, and I mean, the guy has proven to be a good actor, and I don't know really the particulars. I just saw the news, and I'm like, this misappropriation thing is coming again. I hope they get it. If they don't, well, one of
Yeah.
the business moguls have given this opportunity away. So yeah,
So
that's really my take on it. Yeah.
yeah. So first of all, right, if they don't get it correctly, people are really, really going to come.
Back
People
on.
are going to be mad.
Hold on.
There'll
The
be that big
backlash is going to
backlash
be
on people who,
terrible.
created the movie. But
Yeah.
if they actually used a Nigerian actor and they still don't get it correctly, I feel like the backlash would not be as much as when they went across to bring it. And so that brings to fore something we can't shy away from, which is that bias when it
No
comes
kind of
to.
bias.
Yes, the person is not Nigerian. Why? Now, the reason why I'm bringing this into the topic is 2 years ago, Arcon, with the approval of or conjunction with Avoir, put out a declaration that foreign voiceover artists, meaning non-Nigerian voice actors, are not permitted to do Nigerian voiceovers. And when they put that out there, it caused a lot of emotions here and there. People were saying
Everywhere.
things everywhere. Then Voice Acting Africa was very active on Telegram, and we had these
On Telegram, yeah.
conversations. And Nigerian voice actors, more people from what I sampled then, more people were of the opinion that this is not good for our industry because we also do non-Nigerian voiceovers as
Yeah.
voiceover artists. So how do you, if they use the same standard on us, what's left for us, right? And they pay better in terms of, because again, our currency and many other factors like that.
So that
So
economic factors, yeah.
yeah. And I was put on the spot when NPR approached me that year.
Yeah.
They had an interview.
Podcast, man.
You did, right? You were
Of course.
asking me that, what do I think? And initially, I was echoing what Avua and Archon said in terms of how they feel like it's going to protect Nigerian voice actors, because their motive generally was that they wanted more good intentions. It's just like what happened with the music industry. At some point, what's this associations now? I don't know. Maybe it's Murik or whatever.
He-Man.
But maybe it's Piman. Hey, how did I bring Murik into the conversation? That's like very off.
That was off the tangent.
Because it sounds
Just
like
went
music.
into it.
Absolutely. Come on, gosh. Anyway, so the point is, I mean, we saw that happen. It's just like also when there was this declaration that on Nigerian radios, I think it was 70% Nigerian music, then maybe 30% foreign music, something like that.
Yeah.
So these things actually helped the culture and helped the creatives internally to make more money. But when you put it in the voiceover perspective,
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't want to be the judge here, but
Let me be the judge. Let me be the judge. This one, I want to be the judge. This one.
okay.
You see, the truth is, like we all understand that it was the actions were from good intentions, but good intentions can be misplaced. You understand? And I feel like there are a lot of things that happen generally, even without voiceovers, that people get to, like, let's say they mistackle it. There are problems, and like, okay, this one is like this one. There are so many problems in Archon, right? And also Avoa that we need to fix first before moving out, in that direction. It's not like that is not one of the issues, but it's important that your foundation deal with it first, so that when you now start tackling other things, you have less resistance for things of this nature. Yes, it would encourage keeping jobs for voice talent here or on the continent or whatever. But then again, like you said, on the flip side, you have people who are Nigerians who can switch on accents and they get jobs, foreign jobs, right? They are not given any restrictions. Why are they not given any restrictions? Those ones have tackled the important things first. So I think that it was a premature move on their end.
Yeah.
Not entirely wrong, right? Just that it was premature. There are a lot of things that happen like that when it comes to governance, setting policies, and it's one very, I think it's totally for a different kind of podcast talking about stuff like that. But generally speaking, regarding this, that was one thing that was kind of mistackled. I don't think it was necessary to do that because some countries would suffer blowbacks. I can understand it. I'll call out one popular company now, Dangote. We know the Dangote advert. You hear it's Dangote, and you're like, okay, Dangote, with some kind of phonetic and with some, inflection going up. We know that that's not the pronunciation of the word, but then again, the people who own the company will tell you it is a private company. It's not a government entity, And this is how we want it to sound. So they get a foreign individual to do it, right? They might have their preferences. So that's it's one of the things that happens when you have like a free economy and you have a democratic system of government and stuff like that. So the best thing ways to handle such things is to tackle the issues within Archon and Avoa and every voiceover mini establishment or parastatal or has to do with entertainment. When you tackle those things, take for example, we know that something like that came out before we even started talking about rates. You understand?
Yeah.
So if we come together to bring up a rate system and then some of the pending issues we have with media agencies. You see that one? See that problem? See that problem? That's the media agency problem. That problem. Open it like this.
Yeah.
Right? And put policies for it. You can't hold somebody's money for how long. You can't do all those things. When you've done all those ones, and you see how the industry would grow, you'd attract more people. It will be much more lucrative for those within. And if and if you are not good at your job, it will be obvious. You'd be able to weed out people. Those ones will know, okay, if I want to succeed in this thing, I have to go and do classes and get better training and all that, So yeah, it's that's what it is. Then to backtrack a bit, to what you were saying regarding. Sorry, I'm bringing up your elocutionist thing again, but then you said you talked about people who also have speech defects or speech impediments. One of the advice I give, why I asked you, like, do you encounter situations like that? Because I do too. I encounter situations like that. In fact, there are people I've seen with great voices and they have speech impediments. Like, you be like, oh my God, how I wish, you could just correct this. And then I discovered, while I was in school anyway, I discovered that a long time ago, that you have speech pathologists. There are also speech pathologists that deal with things like that. Now, if it's a developmental issue from when they were young or psychological, there are ways speech pathologists can help with this. Because not even just elocutionists. Elocutionists might teach you how to pronounce and all, but then there are certain medical and mental exercises that one needs to do. One of the easiest ones are tongue twisters that people just take for granted and we just play. It helps correct a lot of speech impediments for certain people. And certain practices, oral motor therapy. There are so many things that can help people that are like that overcome, those challenges. So I just thought I should put that out there. Anybody who is interested, invest in doing that kind of thing. I teach that too. I teach, people on how to do things of that nature and then refer them to an actual speech pathologist when it's of a different kind. Because there are people that tongue tie, mutism. They just like seize, they can't talk.
Yeah.
And they can't say anything. The great James Earl Jones, may he rest in peace. He started off as a stammerer, as a stutterer.
Yeah.
And what caused the stuttering was more psychological for him. And how did he overcome it? He used to write, started writing poems, and he would actually say it in his head. And one day his teacher, when he was still in, junior high school, called him and said, "Did you write this?" And he said, "Yes." And he said, "I won't believe it until you can recite it." That's how he started to overcome, So, generally speaking, though, like you rightly said, having a great voice, knowing what to do with that voice is totally important.
Wow.
It is.
Wow. Thank you so much, boss, for chipping that in. A speech pathologist, really important. And I found that to be very helpful. So, for my students and any other person watching this, I can't believe we've spoken for over 2 hours.
2 hours.
But
I
it's
can't believe it myself.
it's always a great time to speak with Boz because he has a lot of experiences and can talk about different things and all of that. But before we round off this conversation,
Yeah,
I like you to plug in some of the things you do.
yeah,
I know you offer trainings aside just being a voiceover artist, a professional voiceover artist.
yeah,
So
yeah,
tell us about it. Tell us about what you and Remy started,
yeah,
to
yeah,
train
yeah, yeah, yeah,
people, and
yeah,
yeah, let's
yeah.
have it.
Yeah. So basically, we saw that there's a because of the explosion of social media. There's more of the social media marketing and all the gang, and it will filter into everything else that works as a business. And as we all know, voiceovers and voice acting is a business. But sometimes it's important. In fact, most times it's important that you don't get hung over the fad or what's just trending. Get back to your foundation. What it is like. Okay, if it's all about the marketing and hitting me up for this, can you do it or do you outsource it? Now that's what media agencies do. Media agencies are like, yeah, we'll hook you up, meet us, we'll give you whoever you need, and you know. But then we started to see that there were certain people who were like you were saying, you want to do this and you have the enthusiasm and you're so pumped, but then you really don't know how to give this delivery of these lines. So Remy and I started uh, coaching the rudiments of voice acting and voiceovers. And we started the classes, and it's been pretty fruitful. We've been making sure that the rudiments, that's the basics. What is it that you need? These things that we're talking about coincidentally,
Mm,
language proficiency, fluency, diction. This is what it's all about. Understanding the differences between voiceovers and, voice acting. Now, all voice acting, is voiceovers, but not all voiceovers is
that's
voice
voice
acting.
acting.
A lot of people don't know that. They think that it's the same thing, but there's that thin line
Line,
that
yeah,
it's very visible. It's thin enough, but it is still thin, and it crosses into one another. So it's important that people get that basic understanding. We do have we have the um, beginners course. It's online. The beginners course, the intermediate, and the advanced. You know, those who don't know anything at all about it and are interested. We get to put that out there every fourth quarter of the year. So it's we're already in the season right now, and we're starting off by November. It's 4 weeks of intense exposure to that basics, because when people interact with it, they suddenly just gain a newfound like respect that so this is what this thing is really about. Some people
mm,
get to find out that they've been doing that, but they didn't know how important it was,
yeah,
right? And then you get to deal with. I mean, before we started, we're talking about what the sound was like, trying to get the levels, and we had to start switching stuff. If you don't know your stuff, you don't know how to get the right equipment, how to the mic is bleeding out, or you're getting to hear sound. The condenser mic is this. All these technicalities, you know, this is how people get to understand that this is a profession like
yeah.
every other. So we start off November 9th, and it ends on the 30th, every weekend. And we make sure that we're able to instill those basics. And then from the basic, if you're still interested, you move to the intermediary level. Of course, you get to pay less. We started off with some free sessions last year, and
Mm,
this year it's 50,000. But for the first 1 to 2 weeks, we have a an early discount of 20%, and we know that everywhere. It's not easy getting money to pay for all these things. But like I said, 50K is where it's at. If you know that when you understand that a commercial costs way more than that in production, in airing, you know how it is that getting 50K to invest in something. A lot of us do these things. I mean, you also coach to T code,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
there are people who get to pay through their nose for, even one-on-one classes.
Yeah.
All right. So it's important that, people get to understand the basics of this thing. And that's what Remy and I are doing. And we do our best to impact our years of, experience, providing that somewhat shortcut in quote for people to grab what they need for the basics. And the moment you get that, in fact, with what you already know in that course, you can move on from there on your own,
Yeah.
because that's the idea. I don't think there's any craft or any profession or anything in this world that if you just get to begin it and you don't continue it, you'll be perfect at it. I don't think there's anything like that. You have to consistently, people like us, we can be going on an errand, just walking, and a billboard is our practice. We are reading the billboard in our head.
No
It
more.
is one of those things that people don't know. It's part of the training.
Yeah.
You should
I
see me in
remember
the
back
mall.
then. Yeah, you're mimicking some voice, in your head. So I remember
Yeah.
back then, people used to think I was crazy in school. Because maybe there was one particular, commercial I did not nail. I wanted it to sound somehow, a way I wanted it to sound. And then I see a new billboard and I'm just talking to myself like, soliloquy, this one they do. But it's one of the things that, it's one of the things that we get to train people on, the rudiments of voice acting and voiceovers, getting
Yeah.
to, train people on that. So we coach for 4 weeks and it's taking off November, all Saturdays, and we just try to make sure that even 9 to 5 hours can also get into it. And if you're interested, you could always send a message to House of Omni Legend at gmail.com. So you get started, you get a prospectus, you get a whole broad view of everything, and then we can start off from there. Yeah.
Sweet.
Great.
Can you take that again?
Yep.
The
Yeah, so that's
email.
the email. Yeah, email address is House of Omni Legend, HOUSEOFOMNILEGENT, House of Omni Legend at
Sweet.
gmail.com. So
Nice.
once we do it, we call it master your craft anyway. So that's just the whole thing. You teach people about that. So, but for that course, it's the rudiments of voiceovers and
Okay.
voice acting, and we just take off. We're just doing a small part in the voiceover industry to let people know this is what it's about. This is what it is. All right, create more value around it and create more buzz around the
Pun intended,
around
I
the craft
guess.
itself. Yeah, pun intended, right? Yeah. So yeah, that's it.
Thank you
That's it.
so
That's
much,
it for you.
Buzz.
Thank you
Thank
so much.
you. Thank you. Thank
Sarah,
you.
do you have anything else you want to, chip in?
No, I mean it's been such a fun episode. It's been such a great episode, and we've covered so much.
Yeah.
We've covered
So
so
much.
much. We'll
Off
have
air,
to
on
take a part
air.
2. Off air and on air,
Because we
have
had
to
like a
create another
30-minute
episode.
session before we
Yeah,
started
yeah,
recording.
yeah.
Oh my.
Yeah.
This
It's been a
officially
lot.
holds the record for the longest episode on the Everything Voiceovers podcast.
For real?
Yeah, actually, this is our longest episode so far.
Yeah. And I think the episode that might beat this one, I'm not sure yet. But the
Yeah.
day we get to interview Eric Maximus Equipment.
Oh my goodness.
Damn.
Eric, you see, Eric is one of those guys that I told you he's in those 4. He
Yeah.
does voice acting, voiceovers, singing, and broadcast.
He's an OG.
You see, oh man,
Eric is
you'd
an
have a
OG.
field day though.
Oh my.
Yeah,
I
true.
can't wait. He's gonna watch this. So
Can't
Eric, we're
wait.
coming for you. We're just waiting for the right time.
Waiting for the
Yeah.
perfect time.
for the
Perfect time.
man.
Yeah, this was the perfect timing for me though. Thank you so much, Sarah.
Oh, for
And
real.
Pleasure.
and
My
T-Code,
pleasure.
it's been a fantastic time hanging out with you guys on
Same
the
here. Same here.
podcast.
Same
Let me just
here.
drop this. Sarah, did you
Yeah.
notice how much of a stunning resemblance Buzz has with Pete Edochie? Like, check it out.
Yes.
Check it out.
Oh my God! Now that
Check
you
it out.
mention it,
Check it out. This is the spitting image of probably a younger version of Pete Edochie.
Yeah.
The look on your face.
Oh my God!
Well, I really
You are very
have
right.
I have no defense regarding this. All I can just say is
Can't even
All I-
say it.
He can't find the
all
words.
all I can say is yeah, we've got doppelgangers all around the world. It happens. Maybe I was supposed to be the Conqueror for things fall apart.
I was gonna say the same.
You know.
I was gonna say so. Because
You
that
know,
was the person who acted the real Okonkwo in the series.
Yeah,
Serious?
he was.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, Peter Doce was
Ah.
I
was
think that was even his
Okonkwo.
breakout movie role.
That was when everyone was like, "Whoa,"
80s
because
or
he used to be a
90s.
broadcaster too. He used to be a
Yeah.
broadcaster.
Solid one.
Yeah, and then
Hmm.
he
I see
Onu
what you
Jacob, like that group, that
Yeah,
those OG group, they started off in broadcasting.
This
too.
man
So
that passed very recently too. That
Who's
sings
that?
One Love.
okay, yeah,
Onyeka
Onyeka Onwenu. Yeah, Onyeka Onwenu. Onyeka Onwenu
That
was a
era
journalist
too.
too. Yeah,
Yeah.
that era,
Yeah.
all of them were in that
Mhm.
that group.
Mhm.
So
Legendary group.
yeah, Peter Doce
Those are people that used
was
to hold
fantastic
people
in
to
that.
high standards.
Exactly. And
Let's move forward.
Onyeka Onwenu has a report she did for I think was it
BBC?
Voice of Nigeria
Oh,
or
okay.
BBC, and it was about the arrest of Fela Anikulapo Kuti, and it was huge. It was big, and because of that, she was inspired to do the popular One Love, Keep Us Together. It was one of those moments that when I look back, I'm like, man, we did have a lot of greats in Nigeria.
Yeah.
And as far as we were concerned, they were doing us a great service. And we have to plug into that. Like, I don't think the country needs us more than right now. So many things from our own enclave where we are. Just do the best you can. Again, like I said earlier on, if you are the light, you light someone, your light is not going out. You are the source. That's really what's important. So yeah.
Peter Doce reincarnated. Perhaps he's gonna act him. Is it a biography? What do you call it now? I forgot it, but
Who
he's
knows,
gonna act biopic.
Yeah.
That would be
Well,
really
I'm
nice.
open, y'all. Creative sector.
I like that.
We can get signing those contracts and getting my act on and creativity on fire. No problem. I am here for you.
Yeah, it doesn't just look like Pete Edochie. He has the stature.
No, but honestly, if that comes up, no problem. I'm ready.
Yeah,
It's,
and
it's,
you're
it's all
Igbo,
about being.
so
Yeah, there are so many ways one
See,
can
it's just-
one can.
Look at that.
Yeah. No, but if it does come out, why not? I take the challenge and do my best to deliver, because that's what we do, to deliver.
Yeah.
And let's just hope it gets to the right people and the right places. That's what's important.
Yes.
Yeah. And I
Thanks
consciously
for rooting for me.
we did for you.
Absolutely.
I think I'll encourage anybody watching right now to the and listening to the podcast, share the podcast with whoever can make this a reality, right? If you want a proof, just watch on YouTube. If you're listening, go right now to our YouTube and
Yep,
just
yep.
look at Buzz I see how much it looks like Peter Doche. He's a legend for people who aren't Nigerians who don't know who he is. He's like is a Nollywood legend in Nigeria. All right, we've had a great time with Boz. I think final words we should plug in our Show Me Love platform. Sarah, you want to tell us about it?
Yes, please. Why do you always push it to me? Well, go ahead. So our Show Me Love platform, or buy us a cup of coffee platform, is where
Yep.
if you've had a great time listening to the podcast, you've learned something, and you just want to show us love by contributing financially to the podcast. You just get to go there and donate. It's pretty quick and easy. We've made sure that there's little resistance on the way to doing that. Just feel free to show us love, because there's a whole team that contributes to what you
Does the
see
work.
here. I mean, you'd have gotten
Yeah.
the mail from our communications manager. We have somebody.
course.
We have a team of people. We have graphics designers, just so that we're able to focus on the content that goes on the podcast. And
Yeah.
it's a lot of work. And these people, we don't do with big guys. We we make sure that the staff are well paid and they have a great time working and contributing to making the podcast come to life. So yes, Show Us Love is where you get to show us and the Everything Voiceovers team love. Yeah. Without further ado, that was it.
Thanks so much, Sarah. Yeah. And Buzz, thank you too for making it a time with us. We really appreciate this. We had a great
Thank you
time.
so much.
And we look forward to some other time where we'll have to talk about voiceover in Nigeria and
Absolutely.
beyond. Yeah. So
Yeah,
guys,
yeah,
that's
of
it for today's episode. Please drop a comment, a like, share, follow us on our social media platforms, and subscribe if you're watching on YouTube. And yeah, new episode drops every Friday by 8 a.m. West African time. Thanks, guys. It's been such a pleasure hosting you. I am T Code, and that's Sarah, and that's Boss Chiedu. Until the next
Yes.
episode, we say keep learning, keep doing
Bye-bye.
voiceovers, and yeah, do your best. Thank you. Bye, guys.
Signing out. Bye.
Yeah,
Good,
yeah.
y'all.